Hi, this is going to be the last video looking at MyBlocks. So the first video we looked at the basics of how to do it, how to make a MyBlock, how to then share it with other people. Second one, we looked at something slightly more advanced. We looked at how to add input parameters, so how to add settings to your MyBlock to give it more power and more flexibility. This one is going to be looking at a specific, I guess, problem, if you want to call it, with the Lego language. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's say that we were trying to make a MyBlock that did the basic line following robot thing. So if you're not familiar with that, the basic line following robot algorithm looks like this. You use a color sensor as it comes with the Lego robot. You use that color sensor to measure reflected light intensity. So you have the color sensor facing downwards and sitting over the top of a black line. And whether you turn left or right depends on how much light's reflected back. Something close to 100% would indicate that you're over a white surface. Something close to 0 would indicate a black surface. So basically, you have a switch block here, and it has two actions depending on whether the light is less than 50, which is kind of like the threshold, which means you're over black, or it's more than 50, which means you're over white. Pretty basic stuff. If you're unsure about it, just do a Google search. It'll come up pretty quickly. So the way we do it is we move the motors individually. And for one of them, you will turn one motor off while the other motor is switched on. So in this case here, motor B is switched off, motor C is switched on. And then the other case, the false case, is the reverse. Motor B is switched on, motor C is switched off. So without going into too much detail, because that's not the point of this video, that will basically make the robot wiggle backwards and forwards along a black line. It's a very, very, very simple algorithm for following a line. Now suppose we want to turn this into a MyBlock. And we wanted to make it a MyBlock with two settings. The first setting would be the threshold for the light. So at the moment we're saying that anything less than 50 is considered to be black, anything more than 50 is considered to be white. But that threshold really varies depending on how high your color sensor is above the surface and how dark the actual room you're in is. So you quite often find that to get the robot to behave predictably, you have to change that threshold number. So that's the first thing we want to be able to change. And the second thing we want to be able to change in our MyBlock is the actual power we apply to each motor. So in this case here, when a motor is switched on, it's got 50% power applied to it. If we want to make it go faster, we might use a slightly higher number. However, going too high will make the robot erratic and unstable. It'll just shoot off all over the place. So you might want to use something lower. So we may also want to play with the motor setting as well. So we want to create a MyBlock that has a setting for the light threshold and a setting for the motor power. Okay, so as before, once we've got the actual guts of it set up, we click a box over it, we go to Tools, we choose MyBlock Builder. Okay, name, an appropriate name for this would be Line Follower. I'm going to leave the icon as is, and I'm going to add two parameters. First parameter will be threshold for the light. Default value can be 50, and that would be an input like that, just a straight old number input. Icon, what we got? Something like that will do just nicely. And then the other one will be the power that goes to the motor. This one here I might use a little vertical slider, and I'll make the default value 50, and then minimum and maximum, well the minimum will be 0, and the maximum will be 100. And then the parameter icon, we get one of those power ones. Looks like that. Okay. So that should do. Click Finish. And then as before, we have this screen where you've got the MyBlock you just created, and then to the left, you've got this little parameter thing. Now we want to like the second video, we want to do data wires to each of these things. So the first one I'll do is I'll just do a data wire from the threshold parameter over to where the actual threshold setting goes in the loop. So where that 50 is at the moment, I'm going to drop it there. Boom, no problem. Now the second one, the power, will want to go to the C block in the top part of the switch block and the B block in the bottom part. So I'm just going to try and draw a data wire to one of those. And there we go. As soon as you get inside that switch block, for whatever reason, the data wire can't get in there. You can't actually draw a data wire to an object inside a switch block. It's just not allowed. So we're going to have to do something to get around that. And it's a pain in the bum, but this is how you do it. We need to create a variable, in other words, a place to store our power setting. And then, inside each part of this switch block, so the top true part and the bottom false part, we're going to read that variable and then stick it into the motor block. So variables, the blocks that deal with variables are in the red tab. So go to the red tab, and the variable is the first one, the one that looks like a briefcase. So I'm going to drag that briefcase up, and I'm going to stick it after the start block like that. I'm going to go up to here where it says variable name. Now there's no variables at the moment, so I click add variable, and I'm just going to call that power as well. Click OK. All right, so now I get the data wire from here. I should probably mention something first. See that pencil and the hashtag? That stands for write numeric. In other words, it means save a variable that is a number, which this power will be. Okay, so I drag the data wire to there and then let go. So what this is going to do is whatever setting I apply as the power will be stored in a variable called power within the my block. So now I just need to read that variable power in the top and the bottom parts of the switch block. And to do that, you need another variable block. Now the first one I'm going to jam inside the top part of the switch thing. Now power comes up automatically because there's only one variable, so that's good. But I don't want to write this time, I want to read. So I click there, I choose read, and I choose read numeric. So now, if I drag a data wire from there to the power part of the C block, that's going to take whatever value I stored in power there and pipe it into the C block there, which is what I want. And then do the same thing down the bottom. Power, read numeric, and then the data wire from there to the power part of the C block. Now that will work. That will work fine. So it's a bit of a pain. It does mean that if you've got multiple settings that you want to use inside a switch block, you have to create a variable for each of those. So if inside my switch blocks I wanted to have a setting for power, a setting for time, and a setting for direction, I'd have to create a power variable, a time variable, and a direction variable. So it is a pain. It does make your programs unnecessarily complex, but unfortunately, at the moment, that's the only way that you can get around that particular idiosyncrasy in the Lego programming language. All right, so that's the end of those 3 videos. By this point, you should be a MyBlock ninja. This is basically everything you'll ever need to know to use it, so I would suggest you get out there and have fun with it. See you later.